assault on free and fair elections is just such a threat, literally. I've said it before. We're facing the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. That's not hyperbole. Since the Civil War.
Literally, as the clip goes on, he says it many times. How many times can one human being say literally without saying anything that is actually literal? But if you don't believe we're in a civil war, maybe you'll believe that all Republican voting bills are racist.
The 21st century Jim Crow assault is real. It's unrelenting.
It was a doozy. It is unrelenting racism, using sheer fear tactics and, of course, maximum hyperbole in their ultimate quest for power. Well, that's nothing new for the left. But with issues like, I don't know, rising crime, door-to-door vaccines. By the way, we have an update on that. Thank you, local news. The border crisis and rapid inflation, the task of convincing voters that Jim Crow is back at the ballot box, I don't think it's working. The American people and their sane state legislators, they're starting to catch on. So this week, Texas Democrats, well, they tried something new. They chartered a couple of private jets, loaded up a case of beer, and fled to Washington, D.C. Now, why did they do that? Because in Texas, a minimum amount of lawmakers are required to be present in order to advance laws. By abandoning the state like huddled and heroic refugees, Texas Democrats can avoid their legal obligation to show up and actually do their job. Look at those selfies, big old smiles, so proud of themselves. And they get to temporarily prevent the Republican majority from protecting the ballot box. They took like 10 or 15 of these selfies. I mean, it's not hard to find an original. Today, the jet-setting and suddenly popular Texas Democrats took meetings with Chuck Schumer and Kamala Harris, both of whom managed to put their dereliction of duty into the proper historical context.
In 1867, Frederick Douglass appealed to the Congress, the United States Congress, for the right for black men to vote. 1913, women marched down Pennsylvania Avenue for the right to vote. And 2021, the Texas legislature came to Washington, D.C.
Mr. Smith comes to Washington. Who knew the 2021 Texas legislature on par with Frederick Douglass and the suffrage movement? Put it in the textbooks right now. The apocalyptic and historic Republican voting bill included some very radical restrictions, like, I don't know, requiring driver's license or Social Security numbers for mail-in voting. We're not talking about photocopying IDs here. We're just talking about voter identification for mail-in ballots. Beefing up criminal penalties for election workers who break rules. Now, we know Dems, they don't like penalties, especially when you burn things. And adding an extra hour for early voting each day from 8 hours, which it currently is, to 9 hours at a minimum. Keep in mind, Texas already has 17 days of early voting on Election Day. Good luck, Texas voters. How are you going to find 15 minutes within 17 days in at least a 9-hour window each day? Sheer suppression. Now Texas Democrats will eventually have to come back and do their job. Governor Abbott can continue to call special sessions to force this vote, unless, of course, they plan to flee forever. So why did they go through all that effort to stall the inevitable? Because it's not just about the Lone Star State. The Texas Democrats fled the front lines. They retreated from the voting rights equivalent of the Civil War, not to surrender, but to draft federal reinforcements.
We are living right now on borrowed time in Texas, and we can't stay here indefinitely to run out the clock to stop Republican anti-voter bills. That's why we need Congress to act now and pass the For the People Act.
We need the president and the vice president and every Democrat in this Senate working together to preserve American democracy.
This is a stunt. This is about H.R. 1. This is about federal control of elections. This is about Nancy Pelosi. The plan is in motion. The country is watching. And the Texas Democrats, they're loving their newfound media attention. They even decided to inspire fellow Democrats and all patriots nationwide by performing this beautiful song.
We will overcome someday. Deep in our heart, I do believe we shall overcome today.
There you have it. Here now, a member of that chorus, Democrat Texas State Representative James Tallarico, who recently flew on a private plane and currently resides in Washington, D.C. James, thank you very much for being here. Now, we know you met with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi today, and the talking points, they've been issued. You've been told to say you're protecting democracy, that Republicans are authoritarians and racist, they're blocking the ballot box, you want voter suppression. I've got it. Texas Republicans are racist. But you're in D.C. now, and the talk is all about H.R. 1, and they're gleefully promoting your effort to promote their national effort. It kind of seems like they're just using you as a prop or a puppet.